Hello and welcome to Northbeat. I'm at Sambake Park in Yellowknife right now. You can see behind me that people are starting to gather. They are participants of the 20th North American Caribou Workshop. Close to 400 people from across the world are in the city to talk caribou this week. Later in the show, we'll hear from the conference co-chairs about the event. But first, the news. Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts in Sambake Park, Yellowknife. We begin tonight in Nunavik, where the bodies of two adults who fell through the ice near Gangnuksuk earlier this month have been recovered. The bodies were picked up on Tuesday afternoon with help from Nunavik Rotors helicopters tours. The deputy mayor of Gangnuksuk says the recovery is a relief for the community.
We were very happy the bodies were found. All the people from Kangiksuk felt the weight lifted. Even though it is a tragic event, I can say we are happy about the outcome.
The two adults were on their way to a fishing derby when the accident took place. The Kativik Regional Government, Nunavik Police and search and rescue crews participated in the search. Staying in Nunavik, the region is facing an unprecedented surge in tuberculosis cases. Across Nunavik, a record 116 cases were confirmed in 2025. And behind those numbers are families whose lives have been changed forever. Carl Cardinal reports.
In Akulivik, Tomasi Anautat lost his wife to tuberculosis in February. The 25-year-old is now raising their 3 children alone. The couple knew they had a latent form of the disease, but did not follow the treatment they had been prescribed. He says more awareness about the consequences of the disease is needed.
We weren't taking it serious. We're not even sick. We were thinking like that.
8 communities in Nunavik are currently dealing with TB outbreaks. Around 60 cases have already been reported this year. Akulivik alone has reported around 20 cases since the beginning of June. In response to the crisis, public health teams have come in for mass testing. But healthcare workers from the south, like Jennifer Moissan, are encountering a language barrier and historical mistrust.
Finding patients to offer screening is still quite difficult. There are a lot of fears and misinformation.
Moissan says there's also shame surrounding the illness, which contributes to difficulties in screening and treatment. Jennifer Munich-Watkins is the executive director of the Nunavik Regional Board of Health. She says overcrowded housing, food insecurity, and poverty are driving the spread. Added to this is a critical lack of resources. She says more investments in the region are needed.
It's really sad. I feel like they don't care or what?
Quebec says it is taking the situation seriously, but has not confirmed any recurring funding to fight the disease. Carl Cardinal, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Today, a healing journey is coming to an end. Nanilavut 2026 has officially wrapped up in Winnipeg. The initiative helps Inuit families locate the graves of loved ones who were brought south for tuberculosis treatment from the 1940s to the 1960s. CBC Igalak host Teresa Hayatchuk has been covering the event in Winnipeg this week.
Approximately 30 delegates and 5 youth helpers were in Winnipeg to visit loved ones' graves who died while south for tuberculosis treatment in the 1940s to the 1960s. The initiative was started by Nunavut Tungavik, who work with regional Inuit organizations to help families find closure. NTI President Gloria Uluksi was there to give her remarks.
There is something powerful about standing where our loved ones rest. It allows families to speak to them, to remember them, to honor them, to finally say, I found you. No document, photograph, or report can replace that experience. Nanilavut means let us find them. Those words are both a promise and a responsibility.
The youth helpers played an important role during the trip, assisting the elders along the way. Tiffany May Nakulak is from Coral Harbour.
I encourage young people to try anything. When the door opens, there's so many opportunities.
Nanilavut 2026 has concluded. Delegates are now making their way home to the Kivalliq. Teresa Khiachuk, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A nonprofit organization in the Northwest Territories wants long-term funding to build and sustain a healing lodge. It got $7 million last year from the federal government for the project, but it says that's not enough, and it wants commitment from the territorial and federal governments to finance the project long-term. The CBC's Devin Tredinnick brings us the details.
We have to establish proper funding, right? I mean, you know, if you only get 60% of the funding and then you have to raise the funding yourself, that's probably a remedy for failure.
Roy Erasmus says his proposed healing lodge will fill a much-needed gap in the Northwest Territories. He's part of a group of Indigenous councillors trying to build it, but it needs long-term funding, and he wants the Northwest Territories to commit and convince Ottawa to chip in. He says trauma healing can't be an unfunded priority.
Who's going to pay for people to come? It's going to have to come from the territorial government, I guess, and the federal government together. So if we can figure out a way where they say, okay, we'll do this, we'll do that, you know, then we can move forward.
Haley Tate is Enda Cho's project coordinator. She says all three parties are working on a funding agreement.
So that's currently in the works. Other than that letter of intent, our conversations have been very collaborative. There's been nothing committed at this time.
The Healing Lodge is not an addictions treatment center, and there's no confirmed opening date or location set yet. But Erasmus says he's working with the Yellowknives Dene First Nation on finding a spot. And he says this lodge could be seen as aftercare. He says participants would have to have remained sober for about a month before taking part in an 8-week program, and they'd have to be sober for that too. He says the lodge would have up to 24 beds, with some rooms accommodating people with mobility issues. Devin Tredinnick, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Some Nunavut elders are getting more financial support from Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated. It comes as part of NTI's Elders Support Program. NTI says elders born between 1959 and 1961 who apply to the program will receive $250 each month starting in August. The payments are retroactive to April 1st, and they will increase each April in line with the cost of living. Elders already receiving monthly payments will automatically get the increased support. People in Tuktoyaktuk NWT are relieved that Ottawa is giving them disaster funding. The money will be used to rebuild structures that were damaged during a severe storm in 2025. The chair of the Tuktoyaktuk Community Corporation says fish harvesters are still missing proper infrastructure as they head into summer fishing season.
I know there's a lot of them waiting for funding to get their infrastructure rebuilt. And, you know, they're very simple structures, but really critical to smoking fish and preparing them for next winter.
The NWT Department of Municipal and Community Affairs will be handling the rollout. A spokesperson from the department says they're working with the community government and affected residents to gather applications for assistance. The department will also send damage assessors to Tuktoyaktuk to determine the scale of damage. The Yukon Hospital Corporation says it lacks critical funding. The Hospital Corporation's leadership wrote to the Yukon Health Minister in March, just days after the new Yukon Party government unveiled its first full budget. CBC has obtained the letter under Access to Information Law. The letter flags a $2.5 million deficit. Dana Hatherley reports.
The documents revealed the Yukon Hospital Corporation needs more money. Its CEO says it can't afford escalating fuel, electricity, and supply costs. The corporation's letter cites a business case to deal with rising patient volumes, acuity, and capacity issues. That also isn't funded. And the hospital corp doesn't have a line of credit, so borrowing money isn't an option. CEO Tiffany Boyd says it delayed vendor payments to the tune of $10.7 million so it could make payroll.
When you ask what keeps you up at night, it is exactly this increasing pressure and demand and these folks that wear their hearts on their sleeves thinking, how am I going to give more? How am I going to fill that gap?
Boyd says the territory's hospitals still deliver safe care, but that the financial situation isn't sustainable. She says staff are doing their best in existing spaces. Boyd says new charge nurses offer better mentorship, communication, and oversight. Third-line nurses provide overnight coverage in the 2 community hospitals. And she says mental health nurses support the emergency department. Boyd says cancer care services went up alongside a major jump in demand. Yukoners are living longer, she says, with the help of medical advancements. But that, combined with population growth, means the territory's hospitals are seeing more patients than ever before. According to Boyd, 8 new beds set to open at Whitehorse General won't prevent overflow. The hospital hit 146% capacity on June 11th. Health Minister Brad Cather says the Yukon Hospital Corporation's budget asks are tied to a lack of space. And he blames the former governing Liberals for chronic underfunding and sitting on hospital expansion plans.
We're working on providing them additional resources this fiscal year and fully intend to do that, but I'm not in a position to announce exact dollar figures until we've gone through our appropriate approval process. But as I've indicated before, we're working with them on their needs. We know that more is needed.
The minister says the hospital's fiscal and size constraints remain some of the government's biggest challenges. Dana Hatherley, CBC News, Whitehorse.
The event around me is for people from across the circumpolar world, and they are all united by one thing: caribou. They're here for the 20th North American Caribou Workshop. Almost 400 people are attending this year. They're from diverse backgrounds: academia, government, caribou management boards, and Indigenous governments, just to name a few. And for 5 days, they're swapping knowledge and brainstorming solutions to the challenges faced by caribou. I spoke earlier with the co-chairs of the conference to find out more. Tell me about the benefits of bringing this diverse group of people together.
I think one of the benefits for sure is just when you bring together so many people from across the spectrum of caribou research and monitoring and stewardship and from across the range, you just get so many different perspectives on, you know, what are the issues that are facing caribou across the range, what are some of the potential solutions for dealing with those issues, and different sources of information.
What is one of the biggest threats to caribou right now?
Caribou, they're resilient. They've existed for many, many years, but today is a challenging time for them. Climate change, for sure, is with warming temperatures. That's changing climatic patterns, so weather. So examples are things like ice over snow events, which makes it challenging for them to feed in the winter. And then, of course, you know, development is always a pressure for all wildlife, caribou included.
We all, I think, really like to have the answer that it's that one thing, and if we just fix that thing. But the truth is, and you would see that here today in all the talks, it's so many aspects working together, like the climate change, predation in some areas, harvesting, poaching is a concern in some places. It's really hard to pinpoint and blame one specific impact, so it's complex. And maybe that's why there's so many people here today too. We need to investigate from all angles. What is going on with our caribou?
Kathy, I know this isn't your first caribou conference. There are, you know, this is the 20th. I'm not suggesting you've been to all 20. But tell me some of your observances of how, you know, the conference itself and perhaps the way that, at least here in the NWT, we deal with caribou. How has that evolved?
Yeah, certainly. My first Caribou conference, NACW, was 2018. That one really has stayed with me. Actually, our plenary tomorrow, she was chair of that one. And I was reflecting how this conference, I think, traditionally was purely academic, really research and science-based. And, the titles and the themes were very the population ecology of caribou kind of thing. But over the years, both in this conference and in our daily work as researchers, scientists, it's becoming much, much more collaborative. Co-management is something we're very good at here in the Northwest Territories because we have so many groups that we're here for the same thing, for the well-being of caribou. So you see in almost all the presentations, at least some acknowledgement of, here's one way of knowing the science, and here's another way of knowing. This is, these are the land keepers or the guardians of caribou. These are some of the questions they have, and let's combine the information from the land and the science and the modeling and the new technologies we have. So there's just much, much more integration of those ways of knowing, but also I think openness and acceptance of the cultural importance and like allowing ourselves to feel and not just be sort of rigid and analytical about how caribou populations are doing. It is emotional for many, many people. So I think there's a lot more openness and acknowledgement of that.
I want to ask each of you, what do caribou mean to you?
I will just start by saying, I'm an animal nut. I'm crazy about animals. I've been working on caribou as a specific topic for over 15 years, different places. It's been very eye-opening to work on caribou here in the north, specifically in what I mentioned, that co-management context, and learning what caribou mean to different cultures. So I of course care about caribou as wildlife and this icon of the Canadian North and the circumpolar North. However, living here and seeing how caribou are part of the daily lives and the histories and the language of people, I'm getting goosebumps because there's been some wonderful talks really driving that home, and I get to experience that and have listen to those kinds of stories in my day-to-day work. Maybe not every day in the office, but in a lot of the work that I do. So that's been really special. I also really love the stories around caribou, and our logo here. It's really teeny tiny, but I'll just tell you in words. It's a female caribou walking off onto the tundra. She doesn't have that iconic, huge rack that you see in a lot of logos with caribou. You can see her vulva patch, and there's a lot of meaning to that too. I think, this is the kind of space and environment where we recognize that these animals aren't just decoration. The females are so important, and she's walking off into the distance and walking into the future, you could say, looking over the shoulder, and the caribou are leading the way, and that's sort of the feeling that I get when I am working on caribou up here with the many different groups. So
yeah, for me, this is my first North American caribou workshop, and I'm relatively new in my caribou journey, but I do, just reflecting right now, I think I saw my first caribou ever when I was about 15 years old in Newfoundland on a salmon fishing trip near Grossmoor National Park, and then it was quite a while after that before I saw another one. But when I first moved to the Northwest Territories and had my first field trip here, I remember seeing the barren ground caribou for the first time out on the tundra, and it's just they're so tied to northern wilderness and the tundra, and it's just it was a magical moment at the time, and it's certainly it's really powerful to see how much caribou mean to so many people. And we have close to 400 people today at this conference. We probably could have had a couple hundred more if we had the capacity to do so. So clearly caribou means so much to so many people in the past and today and moving forward, hopefully.
It's a seasonal issue in the Yukon that some say gets worse every year. The deterioration of the North Klondike Highway. The 533-kilometer stretch of road connects Whitehorse to Dawson City. As tourists venture up the road on the adventure of a lifetime, some say the potholes and washboard surfaces are some of the worst they've seen in Canada. Chris McIntyre shows us what they're dealing with.
The Yukon is a special place. People travel from all over the world to come experience the views, the wildlife, and for some, the freedom of the open road. That's what brought Nina Fisher all the way from Switzerland.
We've crossed the whole country, and every province just keeps surprising us, and we're in awe.
But according to Fisher, awe quickly turned to awful as soon as she hit the North Klondike Highway.
Couldn't take your eye off the road for a moment, because you always had to be prepared that like huge potholes would be showing up somewhere. And we were always looking that we would, well, you're not driving on your side of the road. You kind of try to navigate around those holes.
After driving much of Canada, Fisher says the North Klondike has to be in one of the worst conditions she's seen.
Quebec was kind of bad as well, but since that was the worst part of road that we had so far.
German tourist Marcel Pfeiffer traveled 2,434 kilometers from Halifax all the way to the Dempster Corner for his once-in-a-lifetime trip. He says the last stretch of it was interesting and sometimes dangerous.
I do maybe 70 to 80 kilometers an hour. Then I have time to react to special holes, even when the road is getting really, not bumpy, like some big valleys, like a valley, and we have to really be patient with our car because it could be dangerous.
Pfeiffer says he was grateful for the road markers and flags that were up to warn of oncoming holes and dips, but for every few holes that were flagged, he says there were many that weren't. Linda Benoit is the Minister of Highways and Public Works. Her department is responsible for maintaining the highways across the territory. She knows there's an issue that needs to be addressed.
The effects of chronic underfunding of highways and public works in recent years is starting to really show this year. The Department of Highways and Public Works has seen smaller budget increases than all the large departments over the last government's years in office. And the costs of our key materials like calcium, salt, and BST materials have also risen, in some cases up to 50%.
Benoit says road crews are out all over the territory filling holes and doing emergency repairs. She says that work is ongoing. On my drive to the village of Mayo, there were many sections riddled with holes, but to be fair, there were also long stretches of road that looked like crews had just been there fixing the holes. Much of the washboard sections were along a stretch currently under construction by a third-party contractor who I was told is responsible for maintaining that section. But again, if you're visiting the Yukon or just a local out for a drive on the North Klondike, just slow down, enjoy the scenery, and take some time to smell the flowers. Chris McIntyre, CBC News, Mayo.
One of the Yukon's most famous races has begun. The Yukon River Quest kicked off today. It attracts competitors worldwide from Zimbabwe to New Zealand. The CBC's Katrin Pilkington was there.
This is the starting line of the Yukon River Quest. In just a few minutes, we're going to see dozens of racers come dashing down the Millennium Trail here. I'm in downtown Whitehorse in Rotary Park. The racers will come and they'll be heading for the canoes and kayaks by the water here, jumping into the Yukon River. And from there, they're going to be paddling for the next 715 kilometers.
I'm from Swali First Nations. Lower BC, Fraser Valley, Chilliwack area. Down where we're from, we're people of the river, and here we are on the river doing what we do down there too.
I'm from Germany. I'm an endurance peddler. My endurance career started here in the Yukon, and I pedal races all over the world, and I'm very happy to be in this race again.
And what are some of the countries where you've raced?
I raced in the US, in Canada. Last year I did a race in Australia, then in Estonia, in Italy and Germany. That means all over the world.
And what's different about the Yukon?
Well, the Yukon, this is a kind of a beast of a race, I should say, because it's a wilderness. It's a wilderness, and also the weather, the conditions. The water is really cold. That means if you capsize, you will have a big problem. And I pedal also in races where there are more warm conditions and where you very often see your support crew, your ground crew. Here you have to pedal 300 kilometers through the wilderness before you first see your ground crew again. And then there's another final stretch of 415 kilometers, and this makes this race so beautiful and also a bit dangerous.
For the last several years, the race has really been plagued by the conditions, wildfires, heavy smoke. Is there hope that this is the year that we could finally get back to just the regular Yukon River Quest?
There is a great hope. Everything, even though it's raining, it kind of brings down the pressure, and the lake's looking good. There's no forest fires. Dawson's waiting for us. Carmack's. No, this is looking like a great year.
The race officially wraps up this Saturday at 6 p.m. But for the next 3 days, it's just competitors and the river. Katrin Pilkington, CBC News, Whitehorse.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. And for all the mosquitoes here tonight, you are welcome. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.